Hi and welcome to Orbit. The MacBook Air with M1 took the world by storm. Great performance, great battery life and all of that around $1,000. But now there's a new MacBook Air with the M2 and it is way more expensive. So is it worth the price or did Apple go a little bit too far this time? Apple has fundamentally changed the design language. The former teardrop shape was 16 mm high at the thickest point and 4 mm at the thinnest. Now the whole chassis is a consistent 12 mm thick or rather thin. Just like the new MacBook Pro, only flatter. This kind of takes away the character on the one side, but on the other side it looks really classy, minimalistic and even weighs 50 grams less and has a 20% lower volume. It is made out of 100% recycled aluminum again, and I always throw it in my backpack without a cover and I couldn't notice a single scratch. There are 4 colors: silver, space gray, midnight, Apple's name for a very dark blue, and the one I have here, starlight. It's a very light gold and we also know it from the iPhone 13, the Apple Watch Series 7 and the iPad mini and Air. Personally, I would have found the iMac's vibrant colors even cooler, but unfortunately Tim Cook didn't ask me this time around. On the right side of the body there's the notebook's only port, an aux port. Just kidding, but imagine how funny that would be. On the left side there are 2 USB-C ports and 1 MagSafe. The port charges the MacBook Air up to 50% in 30 minutes with an optional 67 watt power adapter. A feature I've come to love. The included 30 watt power supply takes more than twice as long to charge. If you trip over the cable, it disconnects magnetically. The USB-C port can still be used for charging, but unfortunately only for controlling one external display. There are no speakers to be seen anywhere, but there's still a better sound than on the previous MacBook Air. It's surprisingly full and loud. I think there's no other device that is as thin and sounds better. The trackpad and keyboard are also excellent. I can write on it for hours and I don't want to miss the Touch ID button. The display of the new MacBook Air has grown a little bit, up to 13.6 inches. All the bezels have become thinner and the corners are now round. In my opinion, it really looks tasty, but the new MacBook Pro has even slighter bezels, 120Hz ProMotion and mini LED. So that's even more delicious for sure, but the MacBook Air looks great, with natural colors and an increased brightness of 500 nits. There's also a notch for the Full HD webcam, which is unnecessarily large, but you can get used to it. The quality is better than in the predecessor, but I'm still not impressed. The reason why I use a Mac for my business and also my private life is not because of the hardware, but because of the software, and it is called macOS Monterey. It looks beautiful, operates intuitively, runs stable, and I really enjoy using Apple's free Office software. The ecosystem with other Apple devices but also Android smartphones is great. There is an app store, there's a solid mail program, Safari is a nice and secure browser, and for video editing my choice remains Final Cut Pro X, a software only available for Apple. Also, it continues to impress me when I see that Intel apps run smoothly on the new Apple processors like nothing happened. Which brings me to the latest Apple processor, which debuts in the MacBook Air, the M2. It has again 8 cores. 4 of them are efficient, the other 4 are powerful. Apple says 18% more performance, but I could only measure 17.5%. There are optional 2 additional graphic cores, so a total of 10 for up to 35% more performance and 3.6 teraflops of power. And all of this without a fan. Impressive performance, especially in such a slim notebook, but the leap isn't as big as it was with the M1 back in the days. Now there is a ProRes video accelerator, which I noticed positively when editing videos. I made this review entirely on the MacBook Air. The M1 Pro and even M1 Max MacBook Pro run even faster, but even for more demanding projects you can really use the Air surprisingly well. It's great that you can do creative work on a computer that is this thin and light. I have 16 GB of RAM and I noticed them positively. I really wouldn't get the 24 GB though. The SSD are super fast again with 3 GB per second, although they are 2 GB slower than the new MacBook Pro. Because there is no fan, the M2 gets warmer than the M1. The underside is already so hot after 5 minutes of intense work that I no longer want to touch it with my bare hand. Accordingly, the performance also throttles down. In my opinion, to an acceptable limit, but there's no need to upgrade to the 2 extra graphic cores. Furthermore, the higher performance is achieved by a higher power consumption, and I could measure up to 30% more. And that's why the battery is even larger this time around. From 49.9 watt-hours up to 52.6 watt-hours. However, because the display is bigger and brighter, I noticed a shorter runtime during intensive tasks like video editing. If you use it normally, the battery won't die, and it's still impressive how energy efficient the Apple processors can be. But unfortunately, Apple is not only great in saving power, they are also great in saving on specs. The base model has a 265GB SSD and 8GB of RAM for $1,200. That is a lot of money, and if you want to do more than just office work and the occasional image edit, you really have to think about 16GB of RAM and 512GB of storage, and then you look at $1,600, which is super close to the M1 Pro model, and that has more ports, more performance and a way better display. So I personally would pick the M1 Pro MacBook Pro. The MacBook Air's only advantages are that it is lighter, thinner and has the better battery life. But you can still get the M1 MacBook Air from around $800 now, which is $200 cheaper than on Apple's website. And if the same thing happens with the M2 MacBook Air, then it actually is a fair price for the upgrade. So I would wait on that, and I really hope that Apple doesn't turn the MacBook Air into a luxury product, because it really is a product for the people and for students. I hope you liked that video. I see you in the next one.